Am I dead? In a soundless world, my vision slowly returned and I felt the rain hitting me again. There was something in front of me, something huge. Squinting, the object came into focus. It was an axe, the colossal axe of the demon, and it was sticking up from the ground just a few feet away from me. Being this close, I could tell the weapon was easily more than twice my height. The demon was a much further distance away in a freshly made crater, looking worse for wear and struggling to stand up with movements suggesting confusion. That impact from the turbo laser, at this range, felt like having a sun thrown to my face. Unfortunately, not even that level of firepower with whatever I had done could kill it. Just as the demon was about to get its bearings again, it was hit by an ungodly amount of very accurate heavy bolter fire and a myriad of other weapons. I turned around just to witness the massive gunship swooping in as it continued to hammer on the fallen demon. My hearing still had yet to return, but I could feel the vibrations the gunship created in the air with its firepower. The iconic Space Marine gunship was so close to me. In a daze, I reached out. Accessing. 1. Responding machine spirit within the vicinity. Connect? Yes/no. Yes. Connection established. Accessing machine spirit via Ethernet link. Authority confirmed and accepted. We are ready to serve. Identify yourself. This is Adeptus Astartes Thunderhawk Gunship Shadow Talon #Machineer Ave Imperator. We await your connection timeout. Connection timeout. Did someone sever the link? The Thunderhawk flew over me. Its titanic hull shielded me from the rain for a second, and I sensed some peculiar presence inside it. It then proceeded to fly over the demon, and then a huge amount of explosions detonated in the crater. Cluster bombing run. Theory confirmed. Twice it had the chance to attack me, but it did not. I was not their target. But the Thunderhawk was now definitely the target of all the aircraft and anti-air assets on this battlefield. I watched in amazement as a swarm of aircraft including Flame Raven appeared from all over the battlefield, chasing after the Thunderhawk as it hightailed it out of the fight after delivering its unsolicited attack run on the demon. Just then another ping got my attention. The special weapon delivery was finally here, carried over by a Stratoraptor with perfect timing. I dove into the network, took over the trigger control of the weapon and fired it at the dazed demon. It was like shooting a fish in a barrel as the special missile made a direct hit, creating a bubble of space-time anomaly around the demon. The Caliban's special was a stasis bomb, one of the more exotic weapons available in the Grimdark universe, effectively trapping its target in a bubble of perpetuity for a short amount of time. It was one of the very rare weapons Cryptora had in his stash of secrets. The demon was now stuck in a stasis bubble. Inside the affected area, time basically just froze. Due to the arcane nature of the weapon, no one could tell how long the effect will last, but I fully intend to exploit this period. Crypto, we have it pinned. Understood. I will be directing all available firepower to bear while broadcasting its location to all the channels. We had but a few minutes at most. Please create more distance between yourself and the impact site, and kindly refrain from any further reckless actions in the future. It was then my hearing finally returned and I was aware of a rhino tank pulled over beside me. Alisaya climbed out from the cupola, jumped down from the tank and started walking over with Kira. The sister appeared none too pleased with my plot of ditching them. I took a closer look at Alisaya. The probationary Palatine had a sour expression between pouting and crying. It felt like she really wanted to scold me but held me in too high regard to do so. There was one way to diffuse this weird tension. I stabbed the nameless sword to the ground, walked over and hugged her while apologizing. I am sorry. She was surprised by my embrace and apology. Her power armor was cold to the touch, but it still felt good after all those close calls. The reality of death just passed over by a hair's breadth hit me like a truck as I buried my head into her chest. This feeling of relief was overwhelming. Then an awkward realization hit me. What I was doing now might have been the dream of many hobbyists in my past life. Why did you do that and how did you know? Alisaya finally asked while starting to brush off the mud from my hair. The Thunderhawk's angle of attack was constantly shifting towards the demon, but I was not certain it would work out. The probability checks out. Lady SYRINE had a better chance of surviving a turbolaser impact with her reinforced energy protection field in the open. Being inside an armored transport would bring complications into the equation if that weapon was indeed directed at her. Quoted Kira without missing a beat. However, that will make little difference as you will still be unlikely to survive hand-to-hand combat with that warp spawn. There is one key difference, I answered. You two will still be alive. Both Alicia and Kira looked stunned by my response. Just then the army started firing into the stasis bubble, signaling time to create some real distance between us and the incoming hell. Let's get out of here. After collecting my sword, we boarded the Rhino again and drove away from the demon. We watched the hectic firepower intensify from a safe distance. Soon an endless amount of projectiles were flying into that mess. Eventually even Catalina's Baneblade Terminus Pride had joined the fray, firing all its guns one after another into the bubble. Some long-range artillery rounds had even made it, landing round after round into the bubble. In the finale, a formation of Sororitas Exorcist tanks arrived and added a barrage of missiles into the mix. I also noticed a decorated Sororitas Rhino peeling off from the main battle group and heading right toward us. I recognized it to be Diadina's command Rhino. The precious few minutes stretched on and the frenzy firing of the Imperials piled on. Finally, we received a warning from Cryptora to all open channels. Stasis bubble collapse imminent, stand by for impact. Just as he finished speaking, there was a bright flash and a cataclysmic level explosion as time resumed within that bubble of space with all the projectiles inside. We watched in awe as a mushroom cloud rose from the impact site and the shockwave hit our Rhino, its hull creaking in protest. The sound was deafening even after we put our hands up to cover our ears. Nothing in this universe should be able to survive that. I was confident of that notion and raised my head above the opened hatch to inspect the impact site. Visually nothing could be seen as it was a world of dust, so I sent out Auspex to check. I froze. It was still there. It felt severely weakened than before but was definitely still there. Plus Lady SYRINE. Plus. I almost screamed out loud with a sudden noise in my head before recognizing it was a psychic message from Fulton, one of Thaberus' psycho retinue. Plus Fulty? Be warned, the demon is still here. Plus. Plus we know. The Inquisitor had ordered the troops to stay away until this was resolved. We are approaching your position, please stand by. Plus. From the darkening sky, a new flyer appeared and swiftly approached. It looked like a modified Corvus Blackstar strike craft, sleek and modern looking unlike most of its boxy Imperial counterparts. Psychic resonance confirmed Fulton and Zali were on board. By then Diadina's Rhino finally reached us just as the Blackstar strike craft had gotten close enough. I linked up with its machine spirit and the rest of its passengers became known to me. Neandra and Thaberus were on the strike craft too. As befitting of an Inquisitor knowing the risks involved, Thaberus was wise not to be on board the Flame Raven when it did the attack run. The Black Star landed with a huge downdraft, blowing rain and muddy water everywhere. Shortly after, 4 people exited it with the Inquisitor leading from the front, striding purposefully. Matching his timing, Diadina exited from her Rhino together with Markila, Verita, and Wellmana. Closer to us, the sisters reached first with the Canonus leading in the front. Diadina's expression softened as she saw me. She bowed deeply together with the other sisters before saying, "Holy Daughter, everything went better than expected with just some minor deviations from your plan." I was overjoyed but was in no way about to hog all that glory. Diadina, you and the others had done really great work out there in the field. Now we just have to tie up this last loose end. Thaberus and his group stopped in front of the gathering. The Inquisitor's expression was as indecipherable as ever, but I did detect his awe when he saw the flaming nameless sword for the first time in my hand, followed by a hint of amusement, probably due to my current messy state. "Well, you are in a surprisingly excellent state considering you just took down a greater demon," he commented. I scoffed jokingly before replying, "First, the combined effort of the army took it down, not me. Second, the damn thing is still there. Any idea how to finish it off for good? Can we ask the army to continue blasting it from a distance?" Considering all that firepower just now, I doubt that will work. My investigations on the Chaos cult responsible for this treacherous act revealed they had used an ancient artifact in this scheme. This warp spawn appeared to have tethered itself to the physical world through its connection with said artifact. We might need a direct psychic attack with a force weapon to sever its final attachment to this universe. Force weapon? Where can? I instinctively looked down at the flaming sword in my hand. This counts as one, right? Just when I was wondering if I actually needed to go into that mess and stab the demon myself, Thabrus spoke again. You have done more than enough, let us handle the final. But before he could finish his statement, a blood-curdling roar came from behind us. We all turned to witness an unbelievable scene. About 100 yards away something huge and grotesque appeared from the wall of smoke and dust. A towering, bloodied mess of skinless flesh and muscle stumbled with great difficulty towards us. Where its head was supposed to be was mangled protrusions of organs, and something that looked like a deformed eyeball was hanging out from that mess. For a very brief moment, our eyes met and it recognized me. Kill you, it said to me without words, taking a few steps forward and then collapsed to the ground in a cloud of dust. The whole Imperial gang went silent upon seeing what just happened, then it felt as though the very air itself suddenly changed. This dreaded feeling, the immaterium is coming over? Goosebumps were appearing all over my body and my instinct was screaming imminent danger. The demon is thinning the barrier of reality. Zali was the first to realize what was happening. How? Why? Thabrus demanded. Apparently he was also caught by surprise by this sudden development. I don't get it, but the demon seems to be burning itself up to use the artifact's power. Fulton answered as the situation suddenly became very desperate. Get behind us, Fulton shouted as he started working with Zali. Holding hands, their power fused and a protective psychic field was deployed. Everyone got into it as things literally went to hell around us. Outside the psychic field, impossible colors and weird sceneries appeared as reality started to slip away. Plus this is bad ! Plus Zali cried out through psychic communication. Plus damnation. The barrier won't hold for long! Plus Fulton agreed. Plus what is the name of this psychic power? Plus I asked in amazement. Plus Sanctuary. Plus. Our little sanctuary barrier was not looking well though, it seemed to be cracking from immense pressure. I had seen the psychic duo working together multiple times now and had a rough idea of how to contribute. Plus let me join your psychic choir. Plus but ... Plus Zali hesitated. Plus do it, we will be dead at this rate anyway! Plus Fulton communicated through gritted teeth. Markila. I passed my sword to the sister. Even while in a daze, the Celestian Superior accepted the weapon naturally. I then put one hand on the shoulders of each psyker from behind, sensing the rapid circulation of power between them. This is just like the circulation I had with the sword. Plus here it goes. Plus I started pumping my psychic energy into the circulation with the duo, slowly at first then increasing in intensity as our powers started to blend together. Faster and faster our circulation went as the two psykers continued to channel powers into the field with my backing. Plus so much power! Plus Zali gasped. Plus concentrate and stabilize the field! Plus Fulton commanded, so we pushed further until the sanctuary field stabilized. It is working. We are keeping the immaterium at bay for now, Fulton announced, puffing. Can we move away from here? Thabrus asked the obvious question. Negative, we can't move while channeling this protective field. Are we totally cut off from the outside? I asked while trying to communicate with Cryptora via his skull probe but received no reply. There might be literally a universe between us and our old reality. Thabrus answered grimly. So what do we do now? Diadina asked. As the others started a discussion I found myself spacing out and my attention shifted to where the demon was outside the field. I had another hunch, a really bad one. Recalling the brief moment when I looked into the broken eyes of the greater demon, it must have assessed me with its twisted intelligence and took into account what it had witnessed. This is a trap made for me, isn't it? In a trance-like state, I slowly walked to the edge of the field. Compelled by a knowing feeling, I held my hand out and pushed my finger towards the outside. Just as my finger crossed over the field slightly, a communication came through. Fight me. An inhuman voice sounded in my head, sending frightening chills down my spine as it continued to speak. Fight me, daughter of anathema. In a daze, I found myself being pulled back from behind with a hand choking on my neck and cold steel pressed against the side of my head. It was Neandra. What are you doing? Neandra, Alisaya and Diadina all asked at the same time, and I heard the sound of weapons being raised further behind. "Release Lady SYRINE or I will shoot," added Kira with the sound of her galvanic rifle being loaded up. It seemed like my action just now was about to start an internal dispute. "Stop it, all of you," I said calmly, and felt the grip on my neck loosen slightly, so I continued. "This is a trap for me. The demon wants to fight me, I heard its calling." "What in the, why?" Thebris asked. "I don't understand either. With the low level of casualties we achieved, nothing of this level of threat should have come through via that ritual. It almost felt like it had a personal grudge with me," I replied. No one had anything further to add to that statement, so it was time to defuse this situation. Mustering as much authority as possible, I demanded, "Unhand me, Neandra." Neandra hesitated until Thebris weighed in. "Do as she says. If she was possessed we would all be dead by now." The assassin complied. I turned around to have a look at the gathering. It had been a long day and everybody was looking under the weather. Veritu and Wellmina were looking especially pale. "Seems like I will need to fight and banish the demon myself. Destroying the artifact or hitting the demon with a force weapon will cut off his attachment to our world and end this phenomenon, correct?" "That should be the case." Thebris nodded. I pointed at the nameless sword. "Is that a force weapon?" Zalu winced at my question. "Like just now with its blue psychic flame?" "Definitely." "Good, I had to be sure." "We will accompany you," Diadina said. "No, it is almost pure immaterium outside this field and probably only I have the Emperor's true blessings to stave off its corruptive effect," I replied. In truth, that statement was a mix of half-truths and guesses, but I doubt the rest could help much in the upcoming duel without even taking into account the risks of being possessed or being mutated to death. My companion sprouting tentacles and attacking from behind was the last thing I want to see while in a boss fight, and a sight like that would probably break me. "But this is so dangerous," Markila wanted to argue. "The demon is severely weakened, it can be done," I declared while stretching out my hand to the Celestian Superior. She hesitated for a second, saw Diadina nodding before handing the nameless sword back to me reverently and delivering her blessings. "May the Emperor grant you strength." I nodded, taking back my sword and triggering its flames. I then walked to the edge of the field. Outside this barrier was chaos itself. This is it. The last deciding fight for this war. I took a deep breath and turned my head around. Like a gathering of really expensive-looking cosplayers, the whole group was looking at me silently. "See you all later. The Emperor protects." I forced a smile, tuned my halo to the maximum level and then stepped forward into the unreality. Outside, the first thing I did was to nervously observe myself, looking for any signs of troubles and actively checking my own status. So far everything seemed fine. Looking closer, I found my halo seemed to be creating its own sanctuary field effect around me, constantly repelling the immaterium. The outside was an eerie world. The aftermath of close to a whole army's worth of weapons discharge mixed with the immaterium had made a real mess of the field. Dust, hot steam and smoke were everywhere. Visibility was practically zero with only the light provided by my halo illuminating the path forward. I approached the position of the downed greater demon cautiously, spamming Auspex to constantly confirm its exact location. The readings were weird. It felt like the demon's very existence was hanging by a thread, a burning wool that stubbornly refused to leave. Thinking about the current situation, some facts were dawning on me. A powerful demonic entity thinning down a barrier of reality to bring a world into the immaterium was the standard endgame for a demonic invasion. But that was usually done after the Chaos Forces had gathered enough power and souls to pull a whole world through. This demon doing this now while it was severely wounded served no other purpose than to force my hand, so this is definitely a trap for me. I shook my head to regain focus. Nothing matters now but to banish the demon and call it a day. I continued to spam Auspex forward. It was still not moving, but the ominous feeling was intensifying. Finally, I reached a clearing and saw my target. There in the distance was the injured demon. It was still a bloodied mess and appeared to be motionless. I continued to approach until instincts told me to stop. Looking closer and with my Auspex readings, I saw a disc-like object inside the body of the demon. My psychic sense indicated weird energies were emanating from said object with the demon's essence intertwined with it. This must be the artifact Faberus had mentioned. Now I just need to hit it with my sword. The demon remained curiously motionless, no taunting nor further communication was coming forth. This last boss fight was looking more like a puzzle than an actual fight. So, how? Fatigue was setting in, this need to end fast. I then remembered my pillow throwing way back in the bedroom. Despite being not aerodynamic at all, I still managed to fling the sleeping aid with a respectable speed. That meant the nameless sword could probably be launched like a spear, that way there was no need to get any closer to the demon. Only one shot at this, too bad I could not practice. Wait. I can do simulations. Simulatio, activated. In my mind's eye, I threw the sword again and again at the artifact inside the demon. After a few tries, the process was refined to a certainty, hitting my target again and again without fail. Finally, I was ready. The blue psychic flame on my sword was raging now as if begging to be unleashed. Let's do this. I pulled back my body, poured my remaining powers into the nameless sword and threw it like a javelin. Go back to hell. Just like the simulations, the sword left my hand and flew straight at my target like a bolt of vengeful lightning. Then I felt it. Somehow, my senses detected the demon smirking, its smug emotion apparent and its malice laid bare. Screaming alarms went off in my mind. Something appeared in my senses and came at me with supernatural speed, but my body was still stuck in the after pose of throwing out my sword. Time slowed further and I finally saw what was coming at me. It was a whip, a barbed whip thicker than my arms. Even in my thought-accelerated state, I could not dodge but watched in horror and slow motion as the thing approached. My senses registered the nameless sword hitting its mark just as the whip reached me. Now I really fucked up. Sha'am. There was a thunderous sound and a brilliant flash. The next thing I knew, my body was flying backwards in midair, rain hitting my face. Rain. Reality had returned and, a cold realization surfaced. I got hit and the reinforced energy field of my rosette must have activated. A lot of thoughts quickly went through my head. First off, I was angry at myself for being careless. A whip was part of the default war gear for a typical bloodthirster, and while this opponent was anything but typical, I should have anticipated that. Then my attention went to calculating my odds of survival. This energy field of mine should be similar if not superior to the protection granted by the iron halo equipped by Space Marine commanders. So a minimum of 4++ if not 3++ invulnerable saves? I should be able to survive this. Wait, this is not a game. My thought acceleration ended and in a flash as I came crashing back to Earth, the great momentum had me skipping across the muddy ground for a great distance before finally stopping. In a state of shock, I tried to get up but only managed to raise myself slightly while getting relentlessly pummeled by the rain. I am in such a mess now. What about the demon? I shivered, pushed myself and managed to send out another wave of Auspex to its last known location. Nothing, it was finally banished for real. Looking down at myself to assess my situation, I found all my limbs were intact, but there was this curious feeling of numbness on my chest. Panicking, I tried to sit up again but choked on my throat and proceeded to vomit out blood. Streams of hot blood were dripping down freely from my mouth and nose. Oh, this does not look good. I couldn't even get myself to sit upright. This transhuman body, a supposed peak-level creation of a galactic empire, could not even perform such a basic action now. I need help. In a blind panic, I reached out psychically and to my great relief, managed to grab hold of a pair of familiar consciousness nearby. Plus help ! Plus. Plus Lady SYRINE? Plus they both replied. Plus faulty, Zali. The demon is done for but I am hurt, need assistance. Plus. Plus acknowledged, we are coming over. Plus. Suddenly new sensations started creeping onto my body. Ouch, pain. Wait, ain't I supposed to have a grace period for the adrenaline to suppress such sensations before the pain kicks in? Plus please hurry, I am in a pretty bad state. Plus. Without warning, the pains intensified by folds. I wanted to scream but messages of, regardless, were popping up again and my throat felt like it was filled with blood. Laying flat on my back on top of the cold, wet muddy ground, I saw nothing but a raining dark and dirty purple sky. The psychic duo was still responding, but I could no longer hear what they were saying. I drowned in a sea of pain. Everything faded to darkness. The light rain was still drizzling during the night when an Aquila lander touched down at the primary landing pad of the monastery fortress, where Cryptora's cycle was already waiting with a squad of Skitarii rangers. The lone passenger stepped out of the vehicle and proceeded to greet the unmoving Dominus. The newcomer looked to be a heavily augmented tech priest, however he was dwarfed both in stature and status by the inviting host. "Greetings, Archdominus Cycle. I, Margus Balpragius Organk, arrived as summoned. Glory to the Omnisire, your swift campaign of subjugating the rebels was glorious and indeed blessed by the machine god. If his will be done, let it be done quickly." The short campaign was indeed blessed. Unfortunately, there was a complication. "Margus Balpragius, your talent is needed, follow me." They started walking, leaving the escorting rangers as they went through multiple security checkpoints together. Balpragius observed the curious mix of Mechonicus and Sororitas personnel around. As they got into a lift and started descending, his curiosity finally got the better of him. "Dominus, may I inquire what are we doing in the Sororitas monastery and which exact field of expertise do you require from me?" "Specifically, we need advice from an expert on transhumanism and you are the best Margus biologist on the planet. We are here because of a very important patient." "Patient?" "Yes, patient. Ask no more, all will be revealed." The lift reached its designated floor and the door opened. They were greeted by more security elements, but with Cryptora leading, none dared to bar the duo. Eventually, they reached a huge blast door manned by more guards. To Balpragius' surprise, an inquisitor was also waiting with his retinue. One of the retinue, a psyker by his appearance, stepped forward and lightly probed the Margus. Satisfied with the result, the psyker nodded to the inquisitor and stepped back. It was after that the trenchcoat-wearing inquisitor acknowledged Balpragius. "Well met, Margus. Stringent security is required with what is at stake. I am Inquisitor Thaberus Thorn of the Ordo Hereticus. You will be given access to information classified and of a million-level Imperial clearance. Leaking any information on what we are about to show you will render yourself an immediate enemy of the Imperium. This warning will not be repeated." Before Balpragius could even organize his thoughts, they went through the blast door. Inside was a medical operation theater of sorts, with an assortment of advanced equipment. At the center of it all was a bed swarmed by a myriad of personnel tending to an unconscious form of a female human with an oxygen mask on her face. "That is the patient?" "Yes, transferring her medical records to you now." Balpragius checked the datasheet he received and started analyzing it while they walked. When the augmentation column was read, the shock he experienced almost tripped him over. Written in bold letters on the said column was but 2 words, Primarch Minoris. "Dominus. This specification is no mistake?" "Confirmed. The patient herself disclosed that detail to an aide, and that record was triple-checked. You can double-check her physiology on that point yourself." With a quivering mind, Balpragius quickly went through the rest of the datasheet and realized the reason he was summoned. It appeared the patient had received critical injuries, multiple internal hemorrhaging and organ inflammations were detected, but no one knew how to proceed with the treatment process since the patient's transhumanism was so advanced she was practically another species. "Do you understand now?" "I understand. Please allow me to access all detailed medical readings and records." Some time later, Balpragius had gone through all the data and had a hunch on what was going on. "Dominus, I have reached an unlikely hypothesis on how to improve the patient's condition." Cryptora seemed pleased. "Speak plainly, Margus, we are out of tangible options. None here knew how to deal with an injured Primarch, full-scale or otherwise." Balpragius nodded and continued, "Assuming the patient is truly an existence close to a Primarch, she should have an innate regenerative capability far superior to any standard Astartes. While the internal injuries she suffered were significant, they should not have been able to overwhelm her regenerative tendency." "Then why is her condition not improving?" "From the records, or the lack thereof, I believe the patient was going without nutrient intake for an extended period of time. As unbelievable as it seems, my hypothesis is she might just be deprived of essential nutrients for the massive amount of energy needed to fuel proper regeneration." Cryptora went silent upon hearing the ridiculous yet plausible notion. It was around this time a small commotion happened at the center of the medical bay. Without even looking, the Dominus knew SYRINE's condition had worsened yet again. The patient's vital signs had further degraded. Time is not with us. Margus, how confident are you with your hypothesis? I would argue there are little better alternatives, even if bypassing all the improbabilities and you could get hold of an Astartes apothecary specializing in transhuman care right now. Ancient Imperial records have shown they were also at a loss of how to treat a seriously injured Primarch. You have a point. With me. The tech priests proceeded to the center of the medical bay where a team of elite medical personnel were helplessly monitoring the situation. No one paid any heed to the approaching duo. Cryptora stopped walking, looked around and proceeded to clap his hands. Miraculous as it seemed, a satisfying fleshly clap resounded as his primary metallic hands hit each other as he announced loudly, "Good news, everyone." The frenzy inside the medical bay stopped abruptly. Everyone froze and looked bewilderingly at the towering Dominus. Satisfied that he now commanded everyone's attention, Cryptora spoke. "I have consulted with an expert. The princess might just be too malnourished to heal herself. Please try direct nutrient injections to see if that improves her condition." Upon receiving the revelation, the medical staff hurriedly went to work. Cryptora turned to Balpragius. "If this works, you will have my eternal gratitude and a fair share of the ventures forward. Otherwise, consider yourself downgraded to a servitor once we are done here." "That is unacceptable, Dominus. That terms and conditions never were stated beforehand," Balpragius protested. "My needle cannot penetrate the patient's epidermis," someone cried out. "Same here," another echoed, and the atmosphere of further desperation was setting in. "Let me do it." A sister hospitaller with an Inquisition badge stepped forward and after a while, successfully performed the procedure. "Commencing intravenous therapy now." Like a miracle and to everyone's relief, the patient's vital readings almost immediately seemed to stabilize. "How did you manage that, sister?" "You will need a medical syringe with an adamantium needle and a monomolecular tip. Standard medical equipment won't work," the sister explained to a room of astonished medical staff. "How did you know?" another senior staff member asked. "Experience. Here, please keep a few of these with you," the sister replied while distributing some of her precious medical wares. "I currently only have a limited supply of these on hand. Please do not waste them." "Look. Vital signs are improving." A round of small cheers broke out, the first good news since receiving the patient. "Excellent," Cryptora joined in. "What is your name, sister?" "Verita Kern, currently attached to the Inquisition." "I will commit your name to my memory, Sister Verita. You have the gratitude of Cult Mechonicus for your contribution today." The Dominus then turned to his fellow tech priest. "Margus Balpragius, your place within my holy expedition will be cemented once the omniscient princess regains her consciousness." I was in a void. No time, no space, no body. Just pure consciousness. Am I dead for real this time? No. Wait, who was that? It is me. Who is me? That line gets blurry, doesn't it? SYRINE, is that you? Yes, it is me, or you. It is complicated. You were inside all along? Come out and settle this mess. I can't, otherwise, I won't call for you. Huh, you saw everything? Yes. So how did I do? Impressive, much better than I ever hoped for. I have to ask, why do you need my help in the first place? That, I cannot share with you now. Why? It might break you. Say, what would happen if I had refused to help back then? I am curious too, want to see? A vision appeared. We went back in time to the psychic beacon's activation. Deep in the inner sanctum, back to where it all began. Unable to secure a soul link, SYRINE would fall into a deep coma when the rebels attacked. Without my intervention, Amel and Cantor were doused by the flamer and proceeded to be gunned down while covered in flames. In the preceding gunfight, things got a lot more dangerous for my other associates and Alice. I lost an eye during the battle. Thaberus and Cryptora would still arrive in time and clean up the fight, but they never reconciled due to the heavy losses incurred. Herlin Dyer would take over as Thaberus' interrogator, but her demeanor changed completely after witnessing the charred remains of Amel. She went semi-berserk and executed some of the rebels herself. Apparently, she and the interrogator were more than just colleagues. After that mess was sorted, SYRINE would be sent to the sororitas monastery for medical care. There they would find out about her Primarch physiology. Stricken with the grief of letting their holy daughter down, SYRINE forfeited her position of probationary paladin and volunteered to become a repentant to repent her sins of failing. Meanwhile, Thaberus would continue his investigations without Cryptora's aid. Running low on time and letting a vengeful Hurling Dyer take charge of some of the investigations, he ended up ruffling some feathers amongst the loyalist forces. The massive battle broke out as before. Even without having access to SYRINE's authority, Cartolina's forces aided by the Adeptus Mechanicus still managed to wrestle the advantage from the rebels by adapting an immersive approach. SYRINE would lead one of the most crucial charges into rebels, never to be seen again. The bloodshed was horrendous. Hundreds of thousands died on both sides as a far more crude and brutal version of the trap was sprung. Fueled by the massive surge of souls of the deceased, the Chaos Cult's secret ritual successfully opened a huge portal and a massive wave of demons soon swarmed the planet. Realizing the heretics' scheme too late, the surviving Imperials fought a losing war while more and more warp spawns were summoned through the portal. When the calculus concluded there was no way to hold the grim tide anymore, Cryptora launched a desperate mission deep into the inner sanctum to retrieve the technological treasures sealed deep underneath the beacon. Even with the support of all his advanced cogitators, Cryptora could not bypass the extreme security put in place by the Emperor, and his attempt triggered multiple cataclysmic explosions on site, obliterating half of the planet outright, and destroying the psychic beacon along with the unknown treasures stored within. In the frenzy of the world's final moments, amongst the billions of people on the planet, only a few thousand managed to escape the dying world. Thaberus would return on board his inquisitorial strike cruiser, the Unrelenting Vigilance. There he would officially sign the death warrant for Nusquam and declare the Imperial world damned and lost. The final nail to the coffin was hammered in by executing Exterminatus on the broken planet. On the surface of the dying planet, a newly ascended demon prince credited with the deaths of billions rose from the hellish inferno, only to watch his new kingdom burn to cinders around him. With everything dead and gone, the surviving Imperial ships escaped into the surrounding darkness. Meanwhile, the void ships that were halfway traveling to Nusquam would arrive only to be greeted by a planetary graveyard. This region of space will probably never see the light of the Emperor ever again. I watched as everything faded to the void again, shaken and half expected the, regardless, messages to appear, but everything went quiet. That did not happen. Throne, damned it. You scared the hell out of me. That was extremely unpleasant to watch. You seem to be fading. You are waking up. I can only reach you in this state. Wait, don't go. I have so many questions. There is a lot I cannot share with you. At least tell me, where were you during the last 10,000 years? And whatever happened between you and the Big E? I was being sealed away most of that time. Big E? Is that a nickname of my father? I can try to show you, but it will be unpleasant. Show me. Show me. Very well.